The judge's smile in the supermarket aisle felt like a shard of ice in my chest. He nodded, that same practiced, compassionate look he'd given me 20 years ago when he promised to find my Sarah. He didn't recognize me, not really, just another elderly woman pushing a cart. But I recognized the slight tremor in his hand as he reached for a cereal box. My own hands tightened on the cart handle. I had to know why, after all this time, his eyes still held that specific, hidden panic when they briefly met mine. I knew what I had to do. Get home and open the old box of Sarah's things I'd kept in the attic. I knew it would bring back the familiar, gut-wrenching pain of revisiting her disappearance. His very presence in my town, a respected pillar everyone trusted, weighed heavily on me. I drove home, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. In the dusty quiet of the attic, I pulled the box down. Beneath her childhood drawings, my fingers brushed against a small, sealed envelope I'd never seen before. It was addressed to me, in Sarah's handwriting. The postmark was dated a week after she vanished. Sarah's letter was short. "Mum, if you're reading this, I'm not lost. He told me you were sick, that I had to go with him to help you. I'm so scared." It named no one. But the he could only be someone we both trusted implicitly back then. The judge, William Sterling, had been the only one to visit our home frequently before she disappeared, always offering support. I became more determined to find a connection, anything that linked him to her after that day. It meant a sleepless night, with ghosts of memories swirling. The risk was real. If he suspected I knew, what would a powerful man do? The next morning, I went to the library to use their public computer, something I rarely did. I searched old newspaper archives for any property records in his or his family's name around that time. Most were in the city. But one listing, a small cabin owned by his deceased mother, was in a remote county. The sale date was 3 months after Sarah vanished. The new owner's name was a corporation I didn't recognize. Suddenly, the librarian, a kind young woman, leaned over. "Mrs. Gable? Your son is on the phone for you. He says it's urgent." My son, David, sounded strained. "Mum, where are you? Judge Sterling just called. He said he saw you looking unwell yesterday and is concerned. He offered to send a social worker to check on you." I felt an immediate and suffocating pressure. He was making a preemptive move, painting me as confused and frail. Now I had to prove my sanity and his guilt at the same time. It cost me my own son's doubt. I heard it in his voice. I told David I was fine, just running errands, and hurried home. Inside, I locked the door and pulled out the phone book, my heart thudding. I found the number for the county clerk's office where that cabin was located. I called, pretending to be a potential buyer interested in the property history. The woman on the phone was helpful. She confirmed the sale and said the corporation that bought it was dissolved years ago. Then she added, almost as an afterthought, "It's odd, though. There were no utility hookups ever listed for that address. Never had power or water. A cabin no one could live in. But someone had been there. A cabin without utilities. A place to hide someone without a trace." My hands shook as I spread a state map on the kitchen table. The location was a 2-hour drive, all back roads. I wanted to see that place for myself. I was terrified of what I might find, or of being followed. Pressure built when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw a woman with a clipboard and a friendly, professional smile. A social worker. Judge Sterling was fast. I didn't answer. I stood perfectly still until she left. This was a warning. I packed a small bag. Water. A flashlight. My late husband's old camera. I had to go now, before they could legally force their way into my life. As I backed the car out of the driveway, a dark sedan I didn't recognize turned onto my street and slowed down as it passed my house. I drove away, watching it in my rearview mirror. It didn't follow, but it felt like a shot across the bow. He knew I was digging. As I merged onto the highway, a realization hit me. I hadn't told a single soul where I was going. If something happened to me out there, no one would know why. The drive was a blur of twisting roads and dense pine forests. My plan was simple: find the cabin and document it. I felt a growing dread and isolation. I was under pressure from the ticking clock. How long before David or the social worker raised a real alarm? I found the turnoff, a dirt road nearly hidden by overgrowth. I parked my car behind a thicket of trees and walked the last half mile, my sneakers sinking into the soft earth. The cabin was exactly where the map said, small and weathered, looking abandoned for decades. But the lock on the front door was new, shiny, and heavy-duty. I circled around to a grimy window, cupping my hands to peer inside. It was dark, but a sliver of light from my flashlight revealed something that stopped my breath. On a dusty wooden table sat a child's hairbrush, its handle painted with little pink flowers, identical to the one Sarah had on her dresser the day she disappeared. A sound cracked the silence behind me, the snap of a twig. I spun around, my heart in my throat. Judge Sterling stood there, his face a mask of cold calm. "Eleanor," he said, his voice dangerously soft. "You really shouldn't have come here." His voice froze me in place. Judge Sterling took a step closer, his eyes locked on mine. I needed to get away from him and back to my car, but the woods were thick and unfamiliar. This confrontation put my safety at risk. He could make me disappear just like Sarah. He smiled, that fake, gentle smile he used in court. "You look frightened, Eleanor. There's no need to be. Let's talk inside." He gestured to the cabin door, and I saw he held a key. I felt immense strain. If I went inside, I might never come out. I took a step back, my mind racing. Then I noticed something odd. A small, faded sticker on the cabin's window frame, partly peeled off. It was a cartoon bee, the kind from a children's show Sarah loved. That tiny detail gave me a surge of clarity. I didn't run. Instead, I looked him straight in the eye and said, "My daughter had a hairbrush just like the one in there. You remember Sarah, don't you?" His smile vanished, replaced by a cold, hard stare. He reached for my arm, but I jerked away. "David knows I'm here." I lied, my voice steadier than I felt. "I texted him the address." Sterling's hand dropped, and he glanced toward the road. In that moment of his hesitation, I turned and walked quickly back toward the trees, not running, but every fibre of me screamed to flee. I didn't look back until I reached my car. He was still standing there watching me, but he didn't follow. As I fumbled with the keys, I saw him pull out his phone and make a call. My own phone buzzed in my pocket. It was David again. I didn't answer. Driving away, my hands shook on the wheel. I had to get home and secure the evidence I had, but I knew he wouldn't let this go. When I pulled into my driveway an hour later, a police car was parked out front. 2 officers stood on my porch, one with a notepad. My heart hammered against my ribs. I had to convince them I was fine and send them away without raising suspicion. Losing their trust was the risk. If they thought I was unstable, Sterling could use that against me. I pasted on a calm smile and approached. "Good afternoon, officers. Is everything all right?" The younger one spoke. "Ma'am, we received a concern for your welfare call. A Judge Sterling reported you seemed disoriented in public and might be a danger to yourself." I felt immediate pressure. He was painting me as incompetent. I kept my voice even. "That's very kind of him. But I'm perfectly well. I was just running errands. My son David can vouch for me. I mentioned David to add credibility. The officers exchanged looks. We'd like to come in and just do a quick check for our report, the older one said. I knew refusing would look bad, so I let them in, my mind racing. As they glanced around my tidy living room, I noticed my open atlas on the table, the page showing the county with the cabin circled in pencil. I casually moved to stand between them and the table. As you can see, everything's in order. The younger officer's eyes drifted to the hallway where the attic ladder was pulled down. Do you need help with anything up there, Ma'am? He asked. Before I could answer, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A moment later, a text popped up from the same number. Stop digging, Eleanor, or David's job at the city planning office might suddenly become very difficult. I felt the blood drain from my face. The officers were still watching me. I managed to usher the police out with promises to call if I needed anything. The moment the door closed, I leaned against it, breathing heavily. Sterling was threatening my son now. I had to protect David without revealing what I knew, which meant I needed undeniable proof against Sterling quickly. My son's career and safety were on the line. I went to the kitchen and poured a glass of water, my hands trembling. The situation was getting worse. Sterling had resources I didn't. I needed to find someone I could trust. I thought of Martha, my old friend from the library who retired last year. She was sharp and had a brother who was a reporter. I called her, keeping my voice low. Martha, it's Eleanor. I need your help with something sensitive. I explained briefly about finding a possible lead on Sarah's case and needing discreet advice. She listened without interruption, then said, Meet me at the diner on Main in an hour. I'll bring my brother. Relief washed over me. I gathered the letter and the photos I'd taken of the cabin, hiding them in my purse. As I left the house, I saw the dark sedan from earlier parked down the street. I drove to the diner, taking a circuitous route. When I arrived, Martha was already in a booth with a man I recognized as Ben, the local journalist. I slid in across from them and started to explain. But as I pulled out the envelope, Ben's expression changed. Eleanor, I'm sorry, but I can't get involved. Judge Sterling is a powerful man. He's on the board of the newspaper. My hope deflated. Martha squeezed my hand. There has to be another way, she whispered. Just then, my phone buzzed with a news alert. The headline read, Local woman's frantic search reopened. Family expresses concern for mental state. The article quoted anonymous family sources. I looked up, and through the diner window, I saw David walking toward the entrance, his face grim. David sat down opposite me, his eyes tired. Mum, what's going on? The police called me, and now this article? Judge Sterling says you're harassing him about Sarah. I had to make him understand without putting him in more danger. Our relationship was at stake. If he didn't believe me, I'd be alone. Sterling's influence was turning my own son against me. I kept my voice calm. David, I found new evidence. A letter from Sarah after she disappeared. I showed him the envelope. He scanned it, his brow furrowed. This could be old, Mom. Why now? I explained about the cabin, the hairbrush, Sterling's presence. David shook his head. Judge Sterling has been nothing but helpful to our family for years. This sounds paranoid. My heart ached. I needed him to see the truth. Come with me to the cabin then. See for yourself. He sighed. I can't. I have a meeting with the city council today, and Sterling will be there. He mentioned you might need professional help. The threat to his job was real. I reached across the table. Please, just trust me this once. He stood up. I'll call you tonight, Mum. Stay out of trouble. After he left, Martha leaned in. I believe you, Eleanor. Let me make some calls. I have a cousin who's a private investigator. She gave me a number. I went home, feeling more isolated than ever. In my mailbox, I found a formal-looking letter. It was from a law firm, stating that a petition for a competency hearing had been filed regarding my ability to manage my affairs. The hearing was set for 3 days from now. Sterling was moving fast to discredit me. I sat at my kitchen table, the legal document in my hands. Then I noticed something. The law firm's name was Sterling and Associates. He owned it. I spent the night awake, planning my next move. I had to defeat this competency petition and expose Sterling, but I needed solid evidence that couldn't be ignored. My freedom was in jeopardy. If declared incompetent, I could lose control over my life and home. I felt immense pressure with the hearing so close. First, I called the private investigator Martha recommended. His name was Leo, and he agreed to meet me at a neutral location, a park bench near the river. I brought copies of all I had, the letter, photos, and notes. Leo was a quiet man in his 50s, with a keen gaze. He listened to my story, then said, I'll look into the property records and Sterling's background. But it'll take time and money. I gave him a retainer from my savings, praying it was enough. As I walked back to my car, I felt a sliver of hope. But when I arrived home, David was waiting on my porch, his arms crossed. Mum, we need to talk. I spoke with Judge Sterling. He's willing to drop the petition if you agree to see a doctor and stop this obsession. I stared at him, hurt and angry. He's manipulating you, David. Can't you see that? He looked away. He showed me documents, Mum. Bank statements showing large withdrawals you've made recently. He says you're being scammed or something. I realized Sterling must have accessed my accounts somehow. The pressure was coming from all sides. I took a deep breath. I'm not seeing any doctor, and I'm not stopping. David's face hardened. Then I can't help you. He turned and left. I went inside, my resolve strengthening. I logged into my bank account online. Several large withdrawals I didn't make were listed, totaling thousands of dollars. Sterling was framing me. As I was about to call the bank, my doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw a woman in a suit holding a clipboard. Another social worker or something worse? I didn't answer. She slid an envelope under the door. It was a subpoena for the competency hearing, requiring me to bring all financial records. I picked it up, my hands steady now. I knew what I had to do. I went to my bedroom and pulled a small, locked firebox from under the bed. Inside was Sarah's original diary from when she was a teenager. I'd never read it all, too painful. But now I opened it to the last few entries. In shaky handwriting, she wrote about a nice man who bought her ice cream and told her stories. She called him Uncle Bill. Sterling's first name was William. The words Uncle Bill in Sarah's diary felt like a key turning in a lock I didn't know existed. I closed the book, my hands trembling. I had to protect this evidence at all costs. Sterling could have my house searched or declared me unfit, and the diary could disappear. I needed to make digital copies immediately and hide the original somewhere safe. It was emotionally draining. Each page was a fresh wound, a glimpse into my daughter's trusting mind before he took her. The pressure intensified as I saw a car slow down outside my window again. I went to my small home office and scanned the crucial diary pages onto a USB drive. I also emailed them to myself and to Martha as a backup. Just as I finished, my phone rang. It was Leo, the private investigator. His voice was low and urgent. Eleanor, I found something. Sterling's mother owned more than just that cabin. There's a small storage unit in her name that was never closed out. The payments are automated from a trust fund he manages. It's in the same remote county. This was a new lead, a place he might have stored things he didn't want found. I thanked him and hung up, my mind racing. I needed to see that storage unit. But how could I get in? As I pondered this, I noticed the light on my home phone was blinking. I had a voicemail. I pressed play. It was the bank manager, his tone polite but concerned. Mrs. Gable, we've noticed some unusual activity and would like you to come in to verify your identity for your own protection. Sterling was tightening the net, using my finances to undermine me. I grabbed my purse and the USB drive, intent on going to the bank to confront this head-on. But when I opened the front door, David was standing there, his key still in the lock. "Going somewhere, Mum?" he asked, his voice flat. "We need to talk about the hearing." He stepped inside, effectively blocking my path. David's presence felt like a wall. I had to get past him and to the bank, but I also needed to avoid a confrontation that would make things worse. I had to appease him briefly, while making sure my financial records were secure. It was hard to swallow my anger and act like the confused mother he believed I was. The pressure from Sterling was working through my own son. I forced a smile. "David, I was just heading to the bank to sort out a misunderstanding. Would you like to come with me? You can see I'm perfectly capable." He looked skeptical, but nodded. "All right. But then we're talking about this hearing. Judge Sterling is only trying to help." At the bank, the manager, Mr. Evans, ushered us into a small office. He showed me printouts of the large withdrawals I supposedly made. I denied them all, explaining they were fraudulent. David sat quietly, watching. Mr. Evans seemed sympathetic, but said, "Without proof, we have to follow procedure. We've frozen the accounts pending an investigation." My heart sank. My money was locked away. As we left, David said, "See, Mom? This is what happens. You're not being careful." I felt utterly alone. Later, back home, I waited for David to leave, then called Leo from my cell phone. "The storage unit," I whispered. "Can you find out the unit number and the access code?" He said he'd try, but it might take a day. I hung up, feeling the walls close in. I needed a different approach. I remembered an old friend from my teaching days, Clara, whose son was a police detective. Maybe I could go to him informally. I dug out my address book and found her number. As I dialed, I saw headlights sweep across my living room window. A car had parked outside, and someone was sitting inside, just watching the house. I ended the call before it rang. The phone in my hand vibrated with a new text from an unknown number. "Stop making calls, Eleanor, or your friend Martha might have a sudden accident." They were threatening everyone close to me now. The threat to Martha made my blood run cold. I had to warn her without putting her in more danger. I needed to protect my friends while continuing to work on exposing Sterling. I was becoming more isolated. I couldn't involve anyone else directly. The pressure was immense, with Sterling's watchful eyes everywhere. I sent Martha a coded text we used years ago. "Rain check on lunch. Talk soon." She would understand it meant trouble. Then I focused on the storage unit. Leo called back early the next morning. "I got the unit number and the code. It's 114, and the code is 7291. But be careful, Eleanor. The facility has cameras, and it's in a secluded area." I decided I had to go there today, before the competency hearing tomorrow. I packed a small bag with gloves, a flashlight, and my phone. I drove the 2 hours, my mind replaying Sarah's diary entries. When I arrived, the storage facility was quiet, rows of identical garage doors under a grey sky. I found Unit 114 and entered the code. The door rolled up with a loud rumble. Inside, it was dark and smelled of dust. I stepped in and turned on my flashlight. The unit was filled with old furniture and boxes, but one small metal box sat apart on a shelf. I opened it. Inside were photographs of Sarah, older than when she disappeared, looking thin and frightened. There were also legal documents, birth certificates and social security cards for several young girls from decades ago. My hands shook as I realized Sterling might have done this before. I took pictures with my phone. As I was about to leave, I heard a vehicle pull up outside. I quickly closed the box and hid behind a stack of chairs. The storage unit door began to roll down. I was trapped inside. The door closed completely, plunging me into darkness except for my flashlight's beam. I was locked in. My heart pounded. I had to find a way out without being discovered. I had to escape and ensure the evidence was safe. I was terrified of being trapped, and with the hearing tomorrow, time was running out. I listened carefully. I heard footsteps outside, then a man's voice. It was Sterling. He was talking to someone on the phone. "Yes, everything is secure." "No, she hasn't been here. The unit is clean." He sounded confident. I held my breath, praying he wouldn't open the door. After a few minutes, I heard a car door slam and an engine start. He was leaving. I waited until the sound faded, then felt along the walls for an emergency release. I found a cord and pulled it. Nothing happened. I was truly locked in. I tried my phone, but there was no signal. Panic started to set in. I shone the light around and noticed a small ventilation grate near the ceiling. It was too high to reach. I stacked some boxes carefully and climbed up. The grate was loose. I managed to pry it open and squeeze through, dropping into the narrow space between units. I was scraped and bruised, but free. I ran to my car, which was parked behind the facility, and drove away quickly. When I got home, I uploaded the photos from my phone to the cloud and hid the USB drive in a different spot. Exhausted, I collapsed into bed. The next morning, I dressed carefully for the competency hearing. As I walked into the courtroom, I saw Sterling sitting calmly beside his lawyer. The judge called the case. Then, Sterling's lawyer stood and said, "Your Honor, we have a new witness who can attest to Mrs. Gable's unstable state of mind." To my horror, David walked up to the stand. David, avoiding my gaze as he sat in the witness chair, was a physical blow. My own son was testifying against me. I had to stay calm and find a way to introduce my evidence without being dismissed as delusional. I had to survive this hearing and undermine Sterling's story. My family was being torn apart publicly, and David's betrayal was agonizing. Sterling's pressure had turned my son into his weapon. The lawyer asked David about my recent behavior. David spoke haltingly about my fixation on Sarah's case, the wild accusations against a respected judge, and the large, unexplained cash withdrawals. He said, "I'm worried she's being exploited or is having a breakdown." It was all framed as concern, but each word felt like a nail in my coffin. When it was my lawyer's turn to cross-examine, he had little to work with. Then, I remembered the photos from the storage unit. I passed a note to my lawyer suggesting he ask David if he knew about Sterling's storage unit or the items inside. My lawyer looked skeptical, but obliged. "Mr. Gable, are you aware of a storage unit owned by Judge Sterling's family trust?" David looked confused. "No, I don't know anything about that." Sterling's lawyer objected, saying it was irrelevant. The judge sustained the objection. I felt defeated. During a short recess, I went to the restroom. As I washed my hands, a woman I didn't recognize entered and stood beside me. She slipped a folded note into my hand and left without a word. I unfolded it. It read, "I know what he did to my sister. Meet me at the back parking lot in 5 minutes. Come alone." My hands trembled. This could be another trap, or it could be the break I needed. I had to take the chance. I left the courtroom and walked toward the back exit. As I pushed the door open, I saw a woman standing by a car. She looked familiar, but before I could approach, a hand grabbed my arm from behind. It was Sterling. "Going somewhere, Eleanor?" he whispered, his grip tight. "The hearing isn't over yet." Sterling's grip on my arm was like a vice, his fingers pressing into my frail skin. I had to break free and reach the woman from the note, but he stood between me and the parking lot, his presence a wall of authority. If I failed, I might never learn what she knew, and the hearing would condemn me as incompetent. The pressure was immediate. Every second he held me increased the risk of losing my only potential ally. I tried to pull away, but his hold tightened. "The hearing isn't over, Eleanor. Don't make this harder," he whispered, his voice cold. Just then, the courthouse door opened and the bailiff stepped out. "Judge Sterling, they're waiting for you inside." Sterling's grip loosened slightly as he turned to respond. I seized the moment, yanking my arm free and stumbling toward the parking lot. The woman was already in her car, engine running. She rolled down the window. "Get in, quickly," she urged. I hurried around and slid into the passenger seat. As she drove away, I saw Sterling watching us, his face a mask of fury. The woman introduced herself as Anna. "My sister, Rebecca, disappeared when I was a child. Sterling was the judge on her case too. He always seemed so caring, but I found letters she wrote, hidden in my mother's attic. She mentioned a kind judge who gave her gifts." Anna handed me a small bundle of papers. My hands trembled as I took them. We were only a block away when my phone rang. It was David. I didn't answer. A moment later, a text came through. "Mum, where are you? The judge is issuing a bench warrant for your arrest for leaving the proceedings." Anna glanced at me. "He's escalating. We need to get you somewhere safe." But as she turned a corner, a police car pulled out behind us, its lights flashing. The police car followed us for 2 blocks before turning off, but the message was clear. Sterling had the law on his side. I needed to find a secure place to examine Anna's documents and plan my next move, but now I was potentially a fugitive. I stood to lose my freedom and any credibility I had left. Anna drove to a quiet cafe on the outskirts of town. "We can talk here," she said, parking where we could see the entrance. Inside, I spread the letters on the table. Rebecca's handwriting was similar to Sarah's, young and looping. She described outings with Uncle Bill, how he made her feel special, then scared. One line chilled me. "He says if I tell anyone, Mum will get sick like Eleanor's mum." He had used my own family's history of illness to manipulate her. Anna confirmed her sister vanished after that. "I've been quiet for years, afraid of him. But when I heard about your case, I knew I had to come forward." I felt a surge of solidarity, but also dread. Sterling had more victims. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a voicemail from my lawyer, his voice strained. "Eleanor, you need to return to the courtroom immediately, or you will be held in contempt. They're moving to have you involuntarily committed." The pressure was crushing. I thanked Anna and took photos of the letters with my phone. As I stood to leave, I saw a man in a suit enter the cafe and scan the room. He didn't look like a regular customer. Anna nudged me. "Back door," she whispered. We slipped out through the kitchen and into the alley. My car was still at the courthouse. Anna offered to drive me home, but I knew that was the first place they'd look. I had to retrieve the evidence from my house and go into hiding, but where could I go that Sterling wouldn't find me? As we reached her car, my phone rang once more. It was Leo, the private investigator. "Eleanor, I found financial records linking Sterling to that storage unit corporation. There's a trail of payments to an offshore account. I think he's been siphoning money for years." This was bigger than I thought. But before I could respond, a dark sedan pulled into the alley, blocking our exit. The sedan's doors opened, and two men in plain clothes stepped out. They didn't look like police, but they had an official air. I had to protect Anna and the evidence, so I needed to distract them and escape. My safety and Anna's were at stake, and I couldn't let Sterling's men get the documents. One man approached, flashing a badge I couldn't read clearly. "Mrs. Gable, you need to come with us for your own protection. There's been a concern about your mental state." It was a lie, a tactic to take me into custody quietly. Anna stepped forward. "She's with me. We're leaving." The man ignored her and reached for my arm. I clutched the letters tighter. Just then, a delivery truck turned into the alley, honking loudly. The driver yelled at us to move. In the confusion, Anna grabbed my hand, and we ducked between two buildings, running through a narrow passage that led to the next street. We emerged near a bus stop, breathless. "You can't go home," Anna said. "I have a friend who owns a small motel out of town. She'll let you stay off the books." I agreed, knowing I had no other options. We took a bus to the motel, a quiet place called the Willow Inn. Anna's friend, Brenda, gave me a key to a room in the back. Once inside, I called Leo back. "Can you meet me? I have more evidence." He agreed to come in an hour. I then called my lawyer and left a message explaining the situation and that I had new proof of Sterling's crimes. As I waited, I organized all the evidence: Sarah's diary pages, the storage unit photos, Rebecca's letters, and now Leo's financial findings. I felt a grim determination. When Leo arrived, he brought printouts of bank transfers. Sterling has been moving money for years, likely from embezzlement or bribes. This could bring him down. But as we spoke, Brenda knocked on the door, her face worried. "There's a man at the front desk asking about a woman matching your description. He showed a badge." Leo peeked through the window. "It's one of the men from the alley. We need to go now." He led me out the back, but as we reached his car, my phone vibrated with a text from David. "Mum, I'm sorry. I found something in Sterling's office. I think I was wrong." David's text was a lifeline, but I couldn't trust it blindly. I needed to verify what he found while avoiding Sterling's men. Reconnecting with David could mend our relationship, but it might also be a trap. Leo drove us to a nearby library where we could use a computer without being traced. On the way, I texted David back. "What did you find? Where are you?" He replied quickly. "In his office, after hours. There's a hidden safe behind his bookcase. I saw photos of other girls and documents. I'm scared, Mom." My heart ached for him. He sounded genuinely frightened. Leo parked behind the library and we went in to use a public terminal. I emailed all the evidence I had to a secure account and to Martha as another backup. Leo helped me draft a message to a contact at the state attorney's office outlining Sterling's crimes. As we worked, I saw a news alert on the screen. Local Judge William Sterling issues statement expressing concern for missing elderly woman. The article painted me as confused and endangered, urging the public to report any sightings. Sterling was using the media to hunt me. Pressure mounted. Every moment in public was risky. Suddenly, David called. His voice was a whisper. "Mum, he's here. Sterling just walked into the office. I'm hiding in the closet. He's on the phone, talking about transferring assets and leaving the country. He mentioned a flight tonight." This was it. He was running. I had to stop him. Leo and I rushed back to his car. "We need to get to the airport or his office," I said, but as we pulled out of the parking lot, a police car fell in behind us, its lights still off but following closely. Leo took a sudden turn, but the car matched us. "They're tracking us," he said grimly. My phone buzzed with another text from David. He found me. Help. Then the line went dead. David's silent phone filled me with terror. I had to get to Sterling's office immediately to save my son, but the police car was tailing us, making any direct route impossible. Leo took a series of sharp turns, trying to lose them, but the car stayed with us. "They might have a tracker on your phone or my car," he said. I turned off my phone and removed the battery, just in case. This chase was putting David's safety in jeopardy. Every delay made him more vulnerable. Leo finally ducked into a crowded shopping mall parking garage, weaving between cars until we lost sight of the police car. We parked in a dark corner and caught our breath. "We need a new plan," Leo said. "I'll call a friend who's a cop, one I trust. He can check on David." While he made the call, I thought about Sterling's flight. If he left the country, he might never face justice. Leo hung up, his face relieved. "My friend is nearby. He'll go to Sterling's office and call me back." We waited in tense silence. 10 minutes later, Leo's phone rang. He listened, then turned to me. "David is safe. Sterling is gone, but he left in a hurry." My friend found David locked in a closet, shaken but unharmed. Sterling's computer was still on, with flight details to a country with no extradition. He leaves in 3 hours. We had a narrow window. I insisted on going to the airport, but Leo cautioned against it. "Sterling will have lookouts. We need to send the evidence to the authorities now and let them handle it." I agreed, but I wanted to be there to see him stopped. We drove to a secure location, and Leo helped me send everything to the FBI via an anonymous tip line, including the flight details. As we did, I felt a mix of hope and exhaustion. But just as we finished, Leo's phone buzzed. It was his cop friend again. "You need to see this," Leo said, showing me a news update on his phone. The headline read, "Judge Sterling involved in car accident on way to airport. Condition critical." The article said he was rushed to the hospital. I sat back, stunned. Was this justice, or just another shocking turn? My phone, with the battery back in, rang. It was David, crying. "Mum, are you okay?" "I'm so sorry. I saw everything in his office. He had a whole life built on lies." I told him I was safe. But as we spoke, I saw a familiar dark sedan pull into the parking garage entrance, moving slowly as if searching. We weren't safe yet. The dark sedan moved methodically through the parking garage, its headlights sweeping over the rows of parked cars. Leo and I crouched behind a large SUV, the cold concrete seeping through my thin shoes. I needed to get out of here safely and confirm that the evidence against Sterling had been received by the proper channels. If those men caught us, everything I had uncovered could be destroyed, and I might be labelled as unstable forever. The pressure was mounting with every slow pass of the sedan. Leo whispered, "We have to reach the stairwell on the north side. When I give the word, run as fast as you can." I nodded, my heart hammering in my chest. Just then, his phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen, and his expression shifted. It's my friend at the hospital. Sterling is gone. He died from his injuries in the ambulance. The news left me numb. After decades of searching for answers, he was dead without a confession or a trial. But the sedan was still hunting us. Abruptly, a car alarm erupted from the opposite end of the level, drawing the sedan's attention away. Leo grabbed my arm. Now! We bolted from our hiding spot, weaving between cars until we reached the metal door of the stairwell. We burst through and started climbing, our breaths coming in ragged gasps. On the next level, we could hear voices and footsteps echoing from below. They were following us. We pushed open the door to the mall and melted into the crowd of shoppers. Leo hurried us to a taxi stand, and we jumped into a cab. As it pulled into traffic, I looked back and saw the dark sedan exit the garage and speed after us. My stomach tightened. We weren't safe yet, and now with Sterling dead, who was directing these men? The taxi wove through evening traffic, but the dark sedan stayed close behind. I had to lose them and find a secure place to regroup, but my body ached with exhaustion, and the emotional toll of Sterling's death weighed heavily on me. Leo leaned forward and spoke to the driver. "Can you take a detour through the market district? We're being followed." The driver, a young man with a nervous glance in the mirror, nodded and swerved onto a side street. The pressure was relentless. If they caught us, I might never see David again or clear my name. As we entered the bustling market area with its slow-moving crowds and delivery trucks, the sedan struggled to keep up. Suddenly, a produce truck double-parked, blocking the narrow street. Our taxi squeezed past, but the sedan was stuck. Leo let out a sigh of relief. That should buy us some time. We drove to a quiet residential area and got out at a small park. Leo made a call while I sat on a bench, my mind racing. Who was behind the sedan now that Sterling was dead? Then my phone rang. It was David. His voice was shaky. "Mum, I'm at home. 2 men came by earlier asking for you. They showed badges, but something felt off. I didn't tell them anything. I told him to lock the doors and not answer for anyone." As I hung up, Leo finished his call. I reached out to a retired detective I trust. He said Sterling had a partner, someone in the court system helping him cover things up. That's who must be sending these men. The air grew cold around me. We thought Sterling was the only one, but his network was still active. As we stood to leave, a patrol car pulled up to the curb, and an officer stepped out, looking directly at me. The officer approached, his hand resting lightly on his belt. I had to convince him I was not a threat and avoid being taken into custody, but my credibility was shattered after the hearing. Leo stepped forward calmly. "Is there a problem, officer?" The man nodded. "We've had reports of an elderly woman matching your description involved in suspicious activity. I need to ask a few questions." My heart sank. This was another attempt to discredit me. I kept my voice steady. "I'm Eleanor Gable. There's been a misunderstanding. I have evidence about Judge Sterling's crimes." The officer's expression softened slightly. "I've heard about that. The station is buzzing with the news of his death. But you should come down to give a statement formally." I agreed, seeing a chance to finally be heard. Leo and I got into the patrol car, and during the ride, the officer shared that Internal Affairs was already investigating Sterling based on anonymous tips. At the station, I was led to a small interview room. A detective named Miller joined us, and I handed over copies of the evidence from my bag. He scanned the documents, his face growing serious. "This is compelling. We'll need to verify it, but it could reopen several cold cases." For a moment, I felt a glimmer of hope. Then Detective Miller's phone rang. He excused himself and stepped out. Through the glass window, I saw him talking animatedly with another officer. When he returned, his demeanor had changed. "Mrs. Gable, we've just received a call from your son's neighbor. There was a break-in at your house. David is safe, but the place was ransacked." My blood ran cold. They were looking for the originals of my evidence. As we rushed to leave, Detective Miller added, "Be careful. It seems Sterling's associates are still active and desperate." Leo drove me home, the streets passing in a blur. I needed to assess the damage and protect whatever evidence remained, but seeing my house violated felt like a personal invasion. David waited on the porch, his face pale. Inside, drawers were pulled out, papers scattered everywhere. My hands trembled as I surveyed the mess. This fight was becoming too much for me, my home, my peace, all disrupted. David helped me sort through the chaos. "They took your computer and some files, Mum, but I hid the firebox with Sarah's diary in the basement ceiling after you left." Relief washed over me. At least that was safe. Leo checked the doors and windows. They were professionals, no forced entry. They had a key. That meant someone with access, maybe from Sterling's circle. The pressure was unyielding. Now, my own home wasn't a sanctuary. I decided to gather the remaining evidence and move to a hotel for the night. As we packed a bag, my phone buzzed with a message from Anna. "Heard about Sterling. Meet me tomorrow at the library. I have something else." I replied with a cautious agreement. Later, at a modest hotel, Leo arranged for a friend to watch the place. Exhausted, I lay on the bed, thinking of Sarah and all the years lost. Just as I drifted off, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered, and a distorted voice said, "Stop now, or your son's accident won't be a coincidence." The line went dead. I sat up, my heart pounding. They knew where we were. The threatening call jolted me awake. I had to ensure David's safety and expose the remaining conspirators, but I was running out of energy and resources. Leo was asleep in the next room, and I didn't want to wake him yet. I crept to the window and peered through the blinds. The parking lot was quiet, but a lone car sat with its engine off, a shadowy figure inside. My hands shook as I dialed David. He answered sleepily. "Mum, what's wrong?" I told him about the call and urged him to go to a friend's house immediately. He agreed, sounding scared but determined. After hanging up, I woke Leo and showed him the car outside. He called his police contact, who promised to send a patrol car to check the area. While we waited, I reviewed the copies of the evidence I still had. There had to be a clue I missed. Then I remembered the offshore account numbers Leo found. I asked him to pull them up on his laptop. As he did, I noticed a pattern. Several transfers to a local business owned by a city council member. That could be Sterling's partner. Leo's eyes widened. "This is big. If we take this to the press or federal authorities, it could bring down the whole network." But before we could act, the hotel phone rang. Leo answered, and his face tightened. "The front desk says there's a delivery for you, Eleanor. But we didn't order anything." We looked at each other, knowing it was a trap. Leo told them to leave it at the desk. A few minutes later, his phone buzzed with a text from his cop friend. "The patrol car found the sedan outside your hotel empty. The driver is gone." My throat went dry. Where was he? Then, a soft knock came at our door. The soft knock on the hotel door froze us both. Leo motioned for me to stay back as he peered through the peephole. His shoulders relaxed slightly. "It's Anna," he whispered, unlocking the door. Anna slipped inside, her face pale and urgent. "I came as soon as I could. I think I'm being followed too." She handed me a small, worn notebook. This was in my sister's things. It lists dates and initials of other girls Sterling targeted. One entry matches the city council member, a Mr. Higgins. I felt a surge of dread mixed with determination. I needed to get this new evidence to the authorities immediately, but with Sterling's network still active, trusting anyone felt risky. My sense of safety was dwindling. Every new person involved increased the danger. Leo suggested we contact the FBI directly using a secure line he had from his past work. As he set up his laptop, I noticed Anna glancing nervously out the window. "A car just pulled in," she said, her voice tight. "It looks like the one from the alley." Pressure mounted. We were running out of time. Leo quickly encrypted the files and sent them to an FBI field office. Just as he hit send, the hotel phone rang again. This time, it was the front desk manager. "Ma'am, there are men here claiming to be with social services. They insist on seeing you." I knew it was a lie. Leo packed his laptop. "We have to go now. There's a back exit through the service elevator." We moved quickly, but as we reached the elevator, the doors opened to reveal two men in suits. One of them smiled coldly. "Eleanor Gable? We need you to come with us for your own protection." Leo stepped in front of me. "She's not going anywhere." The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I'm afraid that's not your decision." Then, from down the hall, we heard David's voice. "Mum, I'm here with the police." I turned to see David and two uniformed officers approaching. The men in suits hesitated, then backed away into the elevator, the doors closing behind them. David rushed to my side. "I called Detective Miller after you told me about the threat. He sent these officers to check on you." For a moment, I felt relief. But as the officers spoke with Leo, I noticed one of them glancing at his phone with a peculiar expression. He wasn't looking at any message. He was taking a picture of us. The officer's subtle photo sent a chill down my spine. I had to verify his loyalty and ensure the evidence reached the right hands, but distrusting the police could backfire if they were genuine. David hugged me tightly. "I'm so sorry, Mum. I should have believed you from the start." The emotional weight of his apology was overwhelming. Repairing our relationship was crucial, but the immediate threat loomed larger. I pulled Detective Miller's card from my purse and called him directly, stepping away from the group. "Detective, we have new evidence linking Councilman Higgins to Sterling's activities. But I'm concerned about the officers here. One just took a photo of us." Miller's voice was sharp. "Give me their badge numbers. I'll verify their status." I read them off, my hands trembling. While we waited, Leo showed David the notebook Anna brought. David's eyes widened. "Higgins? He's the one who approved the zoning for Sterling's old properties. He could have covered up the cabin records." The pressure was intensifying. If Higgins was involved, he had power and resources. Miller called back quickly. "Those officers are not assigned to you, they're imposters. Get out of there now." We hurried to the stairwell, but as we descended, we heard footsteps echoing from below. They were cutting off our escape. Anna pointed to a service door on the 3rd floor. "This leads to the laundry room. There's an exit to the alley from there." We slipped through, just as the footsteps grew closer. In the laundry room, the humid air clung to my skin. Leo barred the door with a cart. As we rushed toward the alley exit, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "The evidence has been received. Stand by for contact." Could it be the FBI? Or another trick? We pushed open the door to the alley, only to find it blocked by a delivery van. The driver stepped out, but he wasn't delivering anything. He held up a badge. "FBI. Are you Eleanor Gable?" I looked at Leo, who gave a slight nod. But as the agent approached, I noticed his badge was slightly off-center, and his grip on his weapon was too casual. He wasn't FBI. The man claiming to be FBI took a step closer, his eyes scanning our group. I had to protect everyone and expose this imposter without triggering a violent confrontation. Leo subtly positioned himself between me and the man. "Show me your credentials properly," Leo demanded. The man smirked and reached into his jacket, but instead of a wallet, he pulled out a small device that looked like a taser. "Come quietly, Mrs. Gable. This doesn't have to be difficult. Resisting could lead to physical harm, but giving in meant falling into their hands." David suddenly stepped forward, his phone held up. "I'm live streaming this to my social media. Thousands of people are watching right now. Identify yourself properly." The man's confidence wavered. He hadn't expected that. He glanced at his van, then back at us. "This is a mistake," he muttered, and quickly retreated into the van, speeding away. The pressure eased momentarily, but we knew they would try again. Leo flagged down a passing taxi, and we piled in. "Where to?" the driver asked. I gave the address for the local FBI field office from memory. As we drove, I called Detective Miller back and updated him. He confirmed that the FBI had indeed received the evidence and were dispatching a team to meet us. When we arrived at the field office, 2 agents escorted us inside. They took statements and collected all our documents. One agent, Agent Carter, assured us they were opening a full investigation into Higgins and Sterling's network. For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. But as we were leaving, Agent Carter pulled me aside. "Mrs. Gable, we found something in Sterling's effects from the accident, a key to a safety deposit box. We're obtaining a warrant to open it tomorrow." I thanked her, but as we walked out, my phone buzzed with a news alert. "City Councilman Higgins announces early retirement, citing health reasons." He was running. I looked at Leo and David. We can't let him disappear. Higgins's retirement felt like a slap. I needed to ensure he faced justice, but with the FBI involved, I had to trust their process while staying vigilant. The emotional toll was heavy. I was tired of fighting, but giving up wasn't an option. Leo drove us to my house, which was still a mess from the break-in. David and I started cleaning while Leo set up a security system with cameras. As we worked, David found a framed photo of Sarah that had been knocked over but not broken. He held it gently. "I remember this day. We went to the park, and she was so happy." His voice cracked. The journey's toll was etched in his face. Guilt, grief, and now determination. Later that evening, Agent Carter called. We opened the safety deposit box. It contained journals detailing Sterling's actions over the years, including Higgins's involvement in covering up the disappearances. "We have enough to arrest him." Relief washed over me, but it was bittersweet. The pressure was finally lifting, but the scars remained. The next morning, the news broke. Councilman Higgins was arrested at his home on charges of conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and fraud. The media swarmed, and I gave a brief statement from my porch, with David by my side. I kept it simple, focusing on the victims and the need for closure. After the cameras left, I went inside and sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by the remnants of my life. Leo and Anna stopped by to check on me. Leo promised to follow up with the FBI on the other cases from the notebook. Anna hugged me. "We did it, Eleanor. For our sisters." I nodded, but a hollow feeling lingered. That night, I dreamed of Sarah, not as she was when she disappeared, but as she might have been, a woman with her own life, her own family. I woke up with tears on my cheeks. The house was too quiet. I needed one last thing to truly put this to rest. I drove to the cemetery alone the next morning, the sun warm on my shoulders. I carried a small bouquet of wildflowers, Sarah's favorite. Her grave was under an old oak tree, a place I had visited too few times over the years because the pain was too fresh. Today, it felt different. I knelt and placed the flowers on the headstone, tracing the letters of her name. "I'm sorry it took so long, sweetheart," I whispered. The wind rustled the leaves, and for a moment I felt a sense of peace. The fight was over, but the love remained. Later, David came over with lunch, and we sat in the garden, talking about nothing in particular. The flowers, the weather, his job. He didn't mention Sterling or Higgins, and I was grateful. We were slowly rebuilding what was broken. In the weeks that followed, the FBI confirmed that Higgins's arrest led to more investigations, and several cold cases were reopened. I donated Sarah's diaries and the other evidence to a victims' advocacy group, hoping it would help others. My life settled into a new rhythm. I started volunteering at the local library, helping with literacy programs for children. It felt good to give back, to focus on something positive. Sometimes, in the quiet evenings, I would sit on the porch and watch the sunset, thinking of Sarah and all the what-ifs. But the anger had faded, replaced by a quiet acceptance. I had my son back. My home was secure, and justice, in its own way, had been served. It wasn't a dramatic victory, but a personal one. And for now, that was enough.